generate additional income, but also other opportunities. So. Hey everybody, and welcome to the Property Voice podcast. I'm delighted to have you all with me on this special episode today. We've been running this series on going full-time in property. As I mentioned in the discussion before we started talking, some people are already well down that track and can literally put their feet up and sip pina coladas on the beach. But does that apply to you, by the way? Could you put your feet up, sip pina coladas just yet through property? No? Oh, okay. So
Not yet.
Not yet. Well, we've got the right group. So I like the style there, Martin. So what we've got, last week we had what I call the second steppers. So that's people who've perhaps stepped out, to coin a phrase, and a little bit down the track, but they're not quite at the end of the journey. And what I thought I'd do on this particular episode is just collect people who are perhaps slightly more towards the beginning, either have just literally stepped out or have been, trying to go full time more permanently. So that's the audience that we've got. But less about me. What I thought I'd do is just go around the room, so to speak, and let you introduce yourselves. So I haven't necessarily got a roll call. So let's see how that goes. But if it's too much over talking, I might start selecting names. But who would like to go first and lead us off and just tell us a little bit about themselves, what they were doing before property, and maybe how they got involved in property and what they're doing now?
Shall I go first? Oh, Sean's up.
Cool. So I'm Sean Thomas, 38 years old. Background before property is aerospace manufacturing, and I was kind of the classic accidental landlord at first with one buy-to-let, which then led me on to buy another one some years later, maybe 6 or 7 years later. And it was at that point really that I sort of thought I better start taking this more seriously. That's how I chose a path into property really.
So it started as an accidental thing, but then you started to take it a little bit more seriously and more professionally, Sean, is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's right, yeah.
That's great. All right. Well, thanks for introducing yourself. Welcome. Martin, you were eager to go as well. Let's get you out there. Come on, let's share.
Okay. Hi, my name's Martin. So before property, I was living in Berlin, working at a cocktail bar. And I don't really know what kind of got me into property. I've been reading and kind of learning about property for probably around 6 years by now. Just taking in as much information as I could find. And then I did the second mastermind group of Richard's. And after that, kind of had the confidence to come back to the UK to work full-time in property.
So is it true you were working in a cocktail bar when I first met you?
Yeah, I was thinking should I start singing, but I thought, no, I won't do it to people.
Not a karaoke bar. Welcome, Martin. Well, you made a big step. I know that. We'll probably get into that in a bit more detail, but thanks for the introduction. It's good to have you back in the UK as well. So who else is feeling brave enough to step out and tell us a little bit about themselves?
I'm happy to go next, Richard.
Yes, Dominik.
Yeah, so I'm Dominik. I'm 44 years old. Been working in finance and IT finance really since I graduated way back in about 2000. So I've been working for banks and financial firms since then, although I've kind of always really wanted to work for myself. I bought my first property back in 2007, so that was my residential property. So I lived there for 5 years. In 2012, I was luckily managed to save enough money to be able to buy another property without selling my first property. So I moved and then rented the first property out. So again, just a classic kind of accidental landlord. And then again in 2017, I'd managed to save up enough money to buy another property. So I knew kind of property was a good long-term investment. So purchased a property locally to me just purely then as an investment buy to let. Although, I didn't really know what I was doing then because I didn't have much experience in property. So that was in 2017. And then I think about the same time, my partner actually moved in with me as well. So we ended up renting her property out. So we had 3 properties then. And I think shortly after that, it was kind of like a light bulb moment, I guess, where I figured that actually if I kind of get into this a bit more, kind of understand what I'm doing, I could probably make a living out of this. So then, I started to kind of educate myself, I guess. And that's how I came across your podcast, Richard. And decided to make this a full-time endeavor eventually.
Fantastic. Well, thanks, Dominik, for that. And well, maybe I'll come back to where you are and how you're doing things, but we'll pick that up in a sec. But thanks for the introduction. Appreciate that. And thanks for tuning into the podcast as well. So we're down to the last 3. Who wants to step out? Nana.
My name is Nana. I'm 34 years old.
On most, because at one point it went a little bit Dalek-like, so I thought it was a bit of Doctor Who. But you were talking about making a decision to go into property at the Hollywood sign in LA. Is that right?
Yeah, I was hiking. So we were in LA 3 weeks, or in California. And during those 3 weeks, I was just wondering, what do I want to do with my life? Because it's always when I'm on holiday that I start to reflect on my life, what the past year I've gone and where I want to go. So I was hiking around. Should I do drop shipping? Should I do e-commerce or clothes or property? And I was like, property is the thing I'm gonna go with because that's something that I like.
Fair enough. Well, the Daleks return, so perhaps we'll come back to you in a second and hopefully it clears up. But thanks for that elaboration. Another light bulb moment being mentioned. So we're down to 2. Silvana or David?
I'm happy to go, Richard.
Come on then, David.
So, so my name's David. I'm 26 years old. And so I guess my journey in property started back in 2016 when I graduated from university. My background historically was sport, very much sport focused. I used to swim to quite a competitive standard, so that was my life then. When I kind of retired, as it were, from that scene and went into the business world, I stepped into, I guess, the world of property, working for property related businesses, whether that was fintech type business, a development business, funding type business. So it's all been in and around the property scope, the property sphere, and now actually I'm at a stage where I'd like to go full time into property, have big ambitions, big hopes in going full time into that world, and looking to get onto the ladder as well as have launched a property business. So right at the beginning of this journey.
Thanks, David. I love the way you say you retired there.
Yeah.
Sport, presumably.
What's that, sorry?
Was that from competitive sport?
Yeah, so it's retired at the age of 22 from competitive sport.
The young man's game, is it? The young man's game.
Indeed it is, yeah.
We'll come back to that, because one of the things I want to talk about later perhaps is some of our motivations and our aspirations. So I know a little bit of yours, but if you're up for it, perhaps we can come back to that.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Cool, thanks, David. So I guess, I don't know why nobody had the good manners to say ladies first, Silvana, but maybe we saved the best till last, who knows? So come on, why don't you tell us about yourself?
Hi, my name is Silvana. I used to work as an accountant and credit controller for big companies, like big American corporates. And like in December, I was considering my life, and I was tired of living this life where you work for somebody else and you consider yourself, you don't want to do this life forever. You don't want to retire doing this for, basically spending the most brilliant part of your life to work for somebody else. So at some point, my husband was listening Richard's podcast, and Richard was advertising the apprenticeships, and he came running back to me saying, "Why don't you attend this so we can, you can work full time in property, so I can support you, and this can become your full time job." Because obviously the scope is to live out of passive income. And the only way is having a portfolio, and the final goal is to become financially free, and then live off passive income. That's the end goal for me and for us, for my family, basically.
Very good. I want to drill down a bit more into that. Thanks, Silvana, in terms of the motivations and aspirations. But there's something you said also, which I thought was really interesting, because we've got a mixture here, haven't we? There's some of you are effectively already full-time in property, and working in the field. Silvana, you just said that's exactly what you're doing. You stepped out and you're working and aiming to make a go of working full-time in property and making this a business or a career that you do all the time. But some of you are still have a day job or a day business, and property is something that you're developing, if you like, on the side. So just quick straw poll: how many here are full-time in property now, if you like, and this is it? This is what you're making work. We'll do a show of hands first of all. So a couple of you, and then the rest of you. So 2 out of 6 are effectively have immersed themselves, dive full-time already into property, and the other 4 of you, I guess it's more of a sideline interest. Is that right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for the.
I want to go full-time, but at the moment, sideline.
Yeah. So let's get on to that then. So, no, just before we do. So the people who've gone full-time, so that's Martin and Silvana. What are you doing? What is the direction or the path that you decided to take to throw yourself into the deep end, so to speak?
Oh, Silvana muted herself straight away. So I started out planning to do sourcing full-time, but things don't always move as quick as you expect them to, and there have been multiple challenges. Maybe we'll get to that later, I don't know, but so now I'm doing sourcing. I'm also I manage Richard's portfolio in terms of his rentals, and I also do a bit of video editing for property videos. So there are different parts to how I'm making money at the moment. I am essentially full-time in property, but not necessarily full-time making money from my own business. But I mean, it's kind of what I've wanted to do for a while, even though it's not kind of my own business. I'm still working for someone else, but I'm in property and also have time to do my own thing. So yeah, it's perfect for me right now.
Sounds good. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because you've got at least 3 components there you just rattled off. So I always call that like having a portfolio business or portfolio career, that you earn your income from multiple different sources that you kind of outline. Is it always going to be the case that you'll kind of be like an income generating business, or are you going to invest into assets, property assets as well?
No, so the long-term goal is to start developments of my own, and especially the fact that I'm working so close in terms of with people that are doing developments and doing refurbs and managing some sides of property, that like I can see that goal happening much quicker than I would have anticipated maybe a year ago. So that's the long-term goal, but it's kind of sourcing properties and finding deals for investors is definitely a way that I want to save some money and then reinvest it into my own deals.
Sounds good. Sounds good to me. And Silvana, I know you went on mute there, but if you're brave enough to share with us what you're doing and the path you've taken, that'd be great.
So basically, the strategy at the moment is to find a property to flip. And in the way, I would like to learn more about deal sourcing, like Martin, and also project managing the property that I'm going to source as well. And yes, things aren't moving quickly as you would expect, but I know that this period is not the easiest one because of the virus and because everything's going on and the market is so unpredictable. I found a couple of properties this week. By the time I called the agent, they told me that the property were already sold. So yeah, it's a weird market. And also when we spoke last time, we had our one-to-one, you gave some ideas on how to increase the network, how to improve that side so you can be more in contact with investor and this kind of people that you need to exceed in what you want to do, basically.
Yeah. And so you're another one, Silvana, aren't you? That effectively you've got multiple strands to the way you are trying to generate income. You know, by being full-time in property, you're going to do the flip that you talked about. But also you're doing resourcing, project management. I think some other kind of investor services you're researching at the moment. Isn't that fair? Yeah. Yeah. So, you know, I think it's interesting the people who stepped out, they kind of, I don't know how to use the word, because there's a word that's used a lot and probably overused is hustle. But do you feel like you're hustling, you two? Do you feel like you're having to do different things to make it work?
Yes, I think.
Definitely.
Yeah, thought so. And then, so let's bring the other guys.
It's definitely a grind, but...
Sorry, Martin.
I was just going to say, it's definitely like every day is kind of, you just kind of grinding and there's loads of different tasks to complete and that, but I personally wouldn't have it any other way. So I would much rather say work 12, 14-hour days in property, doing my own thing, being kind of self-employed than be back working for someone else, doing something that's not property related.
I got a thumbs up from Silvana with that comment as well. So yeah, it sounds like you're both onto that particular script. It's cool. So the four guys then who we've been patiently waiting there. So that means you do have a boss at the moment, right? So yeah, I'm not saying having a job is bad, but is that your end game? You know, and if so, when do you think you might be in a position, potentially, assuming your boss isn't listening right now, to maybe step out? Who wants to lead us off into that one? No. You're on mute, I'm afraid. You're off
now. Our goal is in 2 years' time. I think Corona pushed everything back a little bit, but that's for everyone. I really don't like my job because I work nights and I'm a morning person. So nights, and I work at a factory company, warehouse company, Volvo. So yeah, that's my boss. I think they already know that I'm looking to quit my job as soon as possible, but I really don't care because I have all of these insurance. Like if you're lost your job, I don't know how it is in the UK, but in Sweden we have, if you lose your job, if you pay every month, that I've done, you get a security insurance that I'll get around 90% of my paycheck. And I don't know how it will work when UK go out of EU because it's in the EU restriction that you can use this. So then I can relocate if I like to the UK and still get the insurance, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, just let's dwell on that for a second, because you mentioned casually that you're not in the UK. So, so where are you, first of all?
Sweden.
You're in Sweden, right? And so, but your investments in Sweden or the UK or somewhere else?
In the UK.
Yeah. So your activities in the UK, but you're doing it from Sweden. So how are you finding that, by the way, doing it from a bit of a distance?
You need to learn everything from habits that you have in the UK, from how property sales and how everything goes, etc. Like in Sweden, we don't use the solicitors for purchasing a house, but in UK you use it. So it's a lot of things that's not the same, but I'm always up for learning. So I've been listening to podcasts, as you're aware of, webinars, and reading books a lot, and YouTube, and yeah, education, paid for education, etc. So that's the way I think you need to go when you're going to invest in another country that you're not from. So.
And what sort of strategies are you looking to pursue, and will that change in 2 years' time?
No, so for quitting our job, I think the easiest part will be to get some rent-to-rent. We have one rent-to-rent that we're doing at JV, so we're splitting the profit, and that's good. So if we could retain more of that, that will be great, because then we can quit our job earlier. But at the same time, buying assets to keep, because that's the end game.
Yeah.
So,
just quickly, so you're doing rent to rent with a joint venture partner overseas?
yeah.
Right. That's nice and straightforward. Brilliant. Okay, thanks, Nana, for sharing that part. I think we'll go around the table and just pick up the other guys if they're okay. Yeah. Who wants to jump in and tell us about what they're doing, on the sidelines, and what their intentions are and strategies are that they're following right now?
Yeah, so I guess that I'm at the other end of the scale to that. There's no real, I don't have an urgency to sort of leave my day job. I'm quite happy with it being a side hustle, and then hopefully build up some cash for my own investments, and then somewhere further down the road, then I can think about that a little more. And obviously I'm following I'm going down the sourcing route as well. I've teamed up with one of the other members, set up business. Yes, and it's working quite well because there's two of us to sort of share the load. So it essentially makes it as if there's someone doing it full time anyway.
Yeah, so you've got a side hustle, there's two of you, and you're kind of spreading the load, as you called it, with sourcing at the same time as having some of your own rental properties at the moment as well. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, that's correct. They're self-managed at the moment. There's only two, and to be honest with you, I don't really have any issues with them. So it's, they are as hands off as they can be. There's still work involved, obviously, but I think as soon as I start increasing that, I'll bring in an agent to sort of manage those then, and obviously I can concentrate on other things then.
Mm-hmm. And what's the idea behind sourcing then? Is it, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but what's the idea of sourcing and why you've also got properties on the side?
The sourcing really was to build up my own investment fund, really, along with the income I get off the two properties, and then long term look at other strategies aside from just standard buy to let, and then hopefully somewhere along the line move more into development then as well.
Okay, and presumably you can find your own deals, huh?
That's a plus point.
Exactly. Sounds good. Okay. Thanks, Sean, for sharing. Same question. We've got who? David and Dominic, I think.
Do you want me to go next?
Sure.
Yeah, so I guess my goal is to be able to retire when I'm 50, or rather not continue my day job when I'm 50, so that's 6 years away. So hoping then to be financially free, so that then I can focus full time on property. So I don't think I'll fully retire, because I'll still do something, but I'll just be working for myself on the kind of property side. I mean, my current job, I'm a contractor, so I tend to go job to job every couple of years, possibly. So even when I'm 50, if I'm in a good role, I might end up staying there. Where I am now is quite a good role. So 6 years away, probably still won't be in this role in 6 years, but if I'm in a similar role, I may not retire then, but my aim is to be able to, if I want to, when I'm 50, to retire from my day job.
Cool. And what are you doing, if you like, on the side with property? What strategies are you following right now?
So the main strategy, I guess, is buy-to-let. So I have a few buy-to-lets, venturing out, I guess, into refurbs as well. So adding value and remortgaging, so purchasing cash, doing the place up, and then pulling some cash out that we can then recycle and move on again. And then I also have one HMO, which, as you know, which is sourced through yourself. So kind of dipping the toes into that as well. So I think they're kind of my main strategies: so buy-to-let, refurbs, BRR, and then HMOs as well. So that's what I'll focus on initially. Yeah.
Apart from the day job, is there a location influence at all that you're wrestling with?
Well, you mean where I am now, or just in general? So, because something I didn't mention about my goal as well, I'd like to be able to, when I do kind of retire and focus on property full time, I'd like to be able to just go and work wherever I want for 6 months at a time, or live wherever I want for 6 months at a time. Work remotely, move on somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, currently I'm working out in Helsinki with the job I'm on at the moment. Yeah. So investing remotely back in the UK.
Yeah.
I was traveling backwards and forwards quite a lot before the lockdown.
Yeah.
But then obviously, yeah, kind of not at the moment.
Yeah. Was that difficult for you to deal with, or not so much?
Lockdown. Oh, from a property point of view, no, because I've got some JV partners that I'm working with back home. So if things need doing, I have been able to call upon them. Yeah, so it's all manageable. So it's all manageable, and obviously we've assigned good agents to the properties that are currently let. So yeah, I'm kind of hands off. I don't get involved in the day to day.
Interesting. Okay, yeah. So you got some agents, you got some partners that you can rely upon, and obviously, if your intention is to be location independent, to coin a phrase, then it makes sense to set it up from the beginning, doesn't it? That way.
Indeed, yeah, definitely.
That's good. All right, Dominic, good. So I think we've got David then, isn't that right?
Yes, that is me. Yeah. So I'm actually working for a company that works in the property world, property space. So it's an interesting one because I'm learning all the time about the market and sector that I'm interested in anyway. Which, you know, pros and cons. I'm working with someone else, but I'm at the same time I'm working in that environment and learning all the time about various different things, financing, partnerships, different model techniques you can use. So really my strategy at the moment is I've got that as my day job, as it were. Individually, I'm looking for to get onto the housing ladder. Really what I'm looking for is something that I can do up to a degree, either flip it within a short period of time. With what's going on in the market, that probably is going to be quite tricky to find to deal that suits that criteria. So it's more looking at something that actually, okay, I could maybe have a lodger or turn it into a buy-to-let in the longer term. So start building out a portfolio of properties and benefit from a first-time buyer. So that's something that I'm pushing hard on at the moment. And then there's a kind of the third thing, which is, you know, kind of what the guys have said as well, who work full time, as a side hustle of sourcing. So sourcing buy-to-lets, refurb projects, that kind of thing, single units. And and just doing that for some clients really. So I think, you know, where my goals are going to go is ultimately what I'd like to do is be in a position where that sourcing part creates a pot of money plus clientele basis that I can go full time into there. And then like Sean, like Martin, like some of the other guys have said, sort of broaden the horizons and look at other alternative kind of models, maybe development, given my experience in the development sector at the moment, and take it from there. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, it's quite a mixture there, isn't it? You're working in the sector for, you know, your employer.
Yeah.
Trying to get on the housing ladder.
Yeah.
And, you know, create some kind of income stream, whether it's, you know, to add value or whether it's a lodger for rental income.
Yeah.
And then the sourcing to presumably generate additional income, but also other opportunities. So
yeah.
So collectively, when do you all sleep? Because, you know, it sounds to me like you got loads of things going on. I think hard work or long hours or, you know, hustle on the side was mentioned quite a bit. So does anybody sleep here?
There's a good bit of balance.
Again, sorry, not enough.
Not enough, though.
So what I kind of joked about, you know, does anyone sleep? But, you know, on a serious note, are you putting the hours in collectively? Do you find that your own business day is kind of stretched beyond what you might call a regular 9 to 5 job or whatever it is? Do you think you're working longer hours than perhaps the average person?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
Always a little bit in the evenings after the day job, you know, to check up on or do. Yeah.
And I think it's trying to utilize that time that you have in the day. So we all have 24 hours. We all have the same amount of hours in the day, and you can use that 24 hours however you want. And those who do have full-time jobs have certain periods of time where you're working for your employer, but that time outside of those hours is your time, and it's trying to just time manage that time effectively and get the balance. I think that's the key as well for longevity, is making sure that yes, it is a hustle, and yes, it is a, you know, go, but at the same time, it's got to be that balance where you don't burn out. You're not working till midnight, say. You know your body, you know what works for you, and getting into a routine. And then I think it's just being that discipline and consistency, which I think is something that I've learned is if you're putting a few hours in a day, that consistency over time, that snowball effect will rack up, and it starts to produce results. So for me, it's time management and trying to get that consistency right, which is I think it's the hard bit, actually, consistency for sure.
That's a really interesting take on it, to be honest. So what about everybody else? Resonate with what David's saying?
Yeah, it is about consistency. I agree with David, but my problem is that I'm the time management. I want to do so much, and there's not enough time, I feel, and I have to be with my daughter and Emily as well, my fiance. So try to schedule all of those things in, so you don't get worn out. So, but at the same time, I'm always like, if I don't do it, who's gonna do it for me? So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah, I mean, it is a double-edged sword, and I think maybe, you know, I think the key phrase there was, if you don't do it, who's going to do it for you, eh? But and going back to what you touched on a little bit, Nana, and also David said, you know, the consistency in the time management, and having, and whether it's up to you. Does anyone here outsource at the moment, or allocate work to other people? Some of you already mentioned to some extent. So just kind of get a handle on, if you're giving work to other people to make yourself, yeah, Nana, come on, come back. That's cool.
Okay, so the first thing that I noticed, just to get a bit of time management, was that after I read this book, 4 Hours Work Week, I was like, all of those small tasks, why don't we just outsource it to someone who is in the Philippines for a small fee, so I can have more time with my family and do whatever I want, and just focus on the important stuff. So that's what we have done. Me and Emily, we source it to a VA. So she look at the deals, find deals, and then we make the decision just to double check so it's correct. But all of the searching and all of the news that happen in UK, she just summarize everything and just send it in an email where okay, this is important, this has happened in your area, etc., etc. So that's time. That's time consuming if I was doing it on my own. So yeah, I think it's worth the $3 hours that she get.
And how many hours are they working? Is she working for you? Would you say per week, say, or per month?
At the moment, she's working 10 hours a week. Yeah.
But you know, as you said, well, you kind of given us a clue to the cost of that. You know, $3 an hour, 10 hours a week. So, well, $30 a week. Oof, nearly couldn't do the maths in. Somebody better get me out of this industry if that's the case. Yeah. So $30 a week. But you know that your time, I guess, you see it as having a different value to that. Yeah. Cool. And you know, Dominik, you mentioned already, didn't you, that you kind of, you know, what was your word? You're relying on joint venture partners and agents from your point of view.
Yeah, definitely. And something else I was going to mention is like, sort of, I guess, efficiency of your time. So, as David said, you only got a certain amount of hours in the day. So, you know, what tasks need doing now. The other ones, delay them to another time or get someone else to do them.
So have you got any tips on being efficient with your time? Is there any tools you use or techniques that you use?
Well, obviously task lists, things like that. There's a tool that I've recently started using called Notion, an app, which I really like actually. So I feel even though I've been using it like a week or so, it's helped me get a lot more efficient. So you can just put all your notes in there, you know, create task lists, whatever, organize things however you want. Set up Kanban boards. So I've just been doing that, trying to get all my tasks organized, because generally I write stuff on pieces of paper, and then I just have loads of pieces of paper everywhere and nothing gets done. So I'm trying to be a lot more organized. And yeah, I feel like it's already helping.
Cool. And what about the others who haven't spoken so much about this? Any tools or techniques that you're using to manage your time or outsource perhaps?
I think for myself, a real game changer was I read the book Getting Things Done. I think, is it Dave Allen? I think that was a real game changer for me, because I was similar to Dom. I'd write stuff down on paper, but it'd still be sort of in my head, and then I was always forgetting about things, and then you'd come across a piece of paper a week later. But there's a real like handy spreadsheet system that he uses in the book, where you have different lists for like stuff. One of them's like a someday maybe list. But I just found that getting stuff down on that list and sort of ticking them off, moving them over to separate boxes, it you know, really cleared my headspace, and I was much more productive after that.
Thanks, Dominik. Excellent. Don't know if Silvana wanted to contribute, but I know that Martin, we've been talking quite a lot about some of the tools and apps that you've been using. Do you want to chip in at this point?
Yeah, I would say so. In terms of, if I could go back to when I first moved to the UK and started being full-time in property, something I would definitely do different is structuring my day, how I kind of structure it now. So, I mean, definitely one of my best friends for planning things and not forgetting things is Siri. Like just this, like as soon as you remember something, I get Siri to remind me of it, say the next day at 9 a.m. or something like that. And then my Google Calendar, and then I always plan my day the night before. So I have like a little booklet, and then I write what my tasks are and when I'm going to do those tasks on an hourly basis or half an hourly basis. So my whole day is kind of planned out. And to do that, I look at Siri, what I've got her to remind me to do, check those off, put them in the list, look at my Google Calendar, what have I got to do? And then also I've got kind of my KPIs written down broken down into a weekly basis, and they're broken down into days as well. So I make sure that, for example, like I have YouTube videos to edit, and that's always on a Sunday. So I'll always incorporate that into my plans as well. But something going even further in terms of forward thinking for the business and saving time is CRM systems. That's something that I've been massively looking into recently. The main one that I've gotten into is Podio, and during lockdown, I spent probably right now about 300 hours just programming Podio, learning it, setting it up, and I'm probably about halfway to where I want to be. There's a lot to do still, but I've got it to the point where it reminds me to follow up on leads. It reminds me to follow up on connections I've made, and I can add notes and that type of thing. So CRM system is something I'm going to be building out more and more at the moment, and I think that will help massively.
Yeah, I've been certainly very impressed with the way you've gone about things. Would you say that is that natural to you, or have you kind of had to train yourself to use these systems and these apps and these routines or disciplines?
I would say I like organization. Like if I wake up in the morning these days, before I wasn't so much like that, especially when I wasn't working full-time in property. I obviously wouldn't plan my day to the extent I do now. But these days, if I don't plan my day the night before, I wake up and I feel a bit lost. Like it feels strange to not have it all planned out. And it just makes it much simpler. I do like organization. So, I mean, when I work, I always have to have a clean environment. Before I go to bed, my night routine is to clean my whole apartment. So I wake up to a nice clean place. It's kind of like I like the organization side of things, but I wouldn't say I was always like that. No, it's something that, I kind of like the saying, a clean environment, a clean mind, and then I find it easier to get things done.
I see quite a lot of nodding as you're talking there, people resonating with that. I don't know, Silvia, if you have anything you wanted to chip in with at this point, you don't have to, but if there was anything on the sort of systems and outsourcing side of things in particular.
Basically, I try to systemize my days, and when I need to remember anything, I write down everything. If I make a new in the old piece of paper in the diary, if I make a contact with an estate agent, I write down straight away the name. I put everything in my Outlook in the calendar, so I remember to call them once a week just to check with them and see where we are and see if we're making any progress. And so they will remember me because I'm going to be their nightmare. And so because I used to do the same when I was working as a credit controller, so I used to put everything down in Outlook and write down everything on the paper. Even my book, I have a book without dates, without anything. I used to write down everything because if I didn't get that down the day, I keep and copy until I got the task down. So yeah, it's the same basically, probably because I was organized that way, so nothing has changed. I want to improve. I'm sure that there is always room for improvement, and I want to buy the same book that Sean was talking about because I heard of that when I was doing the project management course. So we'll check on that as well to see if there is something that I can use to improve.
Sounds good. Atomic Habits is another one as well. It's a good book as a general. But I mean, I think the point of this part of the conversation was to talk about systems and organization, routine, and also outsourcing and utilizing other people so you can be more efficient, plan your time, focus on your key priorities. That seems to be the kind of a bit of a summary takeaway there. Using other people, using systems and apps and tools to help you get more done, because you have to be highly productive. Many of you are still working, so it's a hustle. But even the ones who are working full time in property, still need to be efficient to get more done. So one of the key characteristics there, you don't always hear a conversation like this down the pub, to be honest. So there's something a bit different going on here with this. And what I'm going to do though, I did threaten you that if we talk and it's all nice, quality conversation, we might run into a two-parter. So I'm going to probably just hit pause right now, and we'll come back and we'll pick up the conversation in part 2. So thanks for joining me on part 1. If you want to get a quick drink or anything like that, we're going to come back to part 2 imminently.